We haven't talked about obesity. I think this is an area which is world epidemic now. As we travel the world, you can see this is not just an American problem anymore. It's a global problem. And by all the westernized societies now, Asia is becoming a problem, South America is becoming a problem. So I think that we're maybe a little too simple if we think it's just a bacterial issue, but there's lots of potential here. I think the animal models are great. Take a lean mouse, transplant that lean mouse's bacteria to a fat mouse, it becomes lean, and vice versa. Take a fat mouse and transport it, give it some lean, it becomes thinner. There's a couple of sort of anecdotal case reports now. The one I just read on the internet the other day about a obese woman who donated her stool to her daughter who'd been thin her whole life because the daughter got C. diff, and within a year the daughter was now 400 pounds and never had a weight problem in her life. So you begin to go, oh, this is a problem, and so, but the concept is interesting and clearly metabolic syndrome. I mean, the data now on the use of sweeteners, saccharin especially, causing metabolic syndrome is frightening.
I think for me, it makes total sense that the gut microbiota plays a role in obesity and metabolic diseases because diet plays such a key role.
Sure.
And so, diet influences the composition, and whether it's a cause and effect relationship, those transplant studies have been, nice proof of concept and studies, but I think also, like the microbiota is changeable, it's adaptable, it's very, it responds very quickly.
Yeah.
So, it can be difficult to induce a stable change.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, and everyone's microbiota is different, and so we're still working out what are the rules and regulations and whether host genetics plays a role. What are the major factors that influence the gut microbiota composition? Whether probiotics can play a role. I think there are interesting mechanisms emerging that suggest that probiotics may be beneficial, but as part of a whole other bigger equation.
Yeah, I think it's very unfair today that people who are overweight, some people are overweight, to blame them and say that they're not exercising enough or they're eating too much. It might even have been the case that it was a parent or a grandparent, because we know enough now about epigenetics, which means the influence of the environment on gene expression, not the gene sequence. So they didn't inherit bad genes, they inherited genes that were miscontrolled.
Right.
But it might well have had something to do with an ancestor's diet.
Sure.
And to say people, are eating too much, well, we're actually eating less than what our counterparts ate 100 years ago, but we're not moving as much. That's a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
So you have to be looking at both sides of the equation, and it won't be enough to just look at energy intake, energy output. There's all this stuff that we're talking about, these metabolic cascades in between that are being influenced by the microbiota. But just looking at one or two of them won't be enough. It's a much bigger problem than the way we generally express it.
And our diet has significantly changed along with that as well.
Sure.
People are no longer eating the fresh fruits and vegetables, the
give it
whole
variety.
grains.
Yeah.
We're losing some of that variety.
The microbiota has been almost a black box until recently. Let's say dietitians, nutritionists took account of what was going in and what was the body effect, but let's say the microbiota is almost the window. It's like everything goes through there, and so I think it's an exciting area. I think the study, Fergus, that you talked about, the ElderMet study, it was so simple. It was just so simple. It almost the results were almost so logical.
Yeah.
As in, how has someone not shown this before? But they hadn't. That all the fundamental questions are only starting to be addressed.
Well, that showed what we already knew, but we didn't really believe.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that it was important to eat a diverse diet and eat all the things you're referring to, but we don't do it unless we see a bit of a mechanism. The microbiota has allowed us to see what's actually happening over a very short period of time. That the impact of a diverse diet versus a monotonous diet, within weeks it can change our microbiota. That
Even
can't be
days.
good.
Yeah.
In terms of a probiotic, a true probiotic effect has to deal with all that diversity, all that change. And if a probiotic needs to be effective in a complicated environment. So again, it's about making sure that the probiotic is specific, the mechanism makes sense in the context.
Yeah. So you think in the opening this black box, or are we opening Pandora's box?
I think it's more like
so you think it'll be better than worse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
I can't wait to see what emerges.
I think the microbiota has made dietetics, nutrition far more interesting than it was.
Very
Fascinating.
much. Very
Fascinating.
much.